Welcome back to Dufferin Life. I'm so glad you stayed with us, and if you're just joining us, I'm glad you're joining us now. So we're going to talk about something that I used to do as a young child, and I don't do anymore. And we're going to learn about how I could possibly start doing it again. Joining me is a familiar face. He's been on the show to talk about skiing. We have Terrence, and he is the Director of Alpine and Recreation for Hockley Valley Resort.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me back.
I'm glad you came back. We had such fun talking about skiing the last time and really get into the basics. And this time we're going to talk about, and I haven't even told them what we're going to talk about. I just said I did it, and now I don't do it, and I could possibly do it again. So we're going to talk about biking in Hockley Valley. So let's start from the very beginning. I've decided that I want to buy a bike. I want to get into shape, Terrence.
Yep.
What am I supposed to do to get started?
I think depending on your experience and what you want to do, I think getting used to the equipment, getting used to rolling again, kind of that freedom. If you imagine back when you were a child, that really is the first time you get to explore your whole neighborhood beyond just your home, right? So I think just getting reacquainted with the bike, obviously some of the equipment that's most important is definitely a helmet.
Right.
You want to have that, and then just get used to rolling, probably checking out the gears and just making sure that you do it on probably a flat surface. There's a lot of rail trails around here that are amazing.
Okay.
They stretch for long kilometers in a straight line. You kind of get warmed up in doing it that way.
Yeah, I think it's best not to just hop right in and think that just because you rode a bike when you were 14 or 10, that you can hop in it. I'm not saying my age, but you can just hop in and do it again. So getting used to that whole feeling of maybe just taking it out around the block for the first time just to make sure you've got that.
For sure. I think there's getting used to the equipment. There's mentally and physically being in shape, right? It's not just the lungs that are going, but even just understanding where you're going, like navigation. When we go to teach people, we do talk about kind of the bike, the person that's riding, and then the environment, because that's the big thing, right? And I had suggested the rail trails just because it's great, because you don't have a lot of traffic. A lot of people actually going the same way, and if not, they're going the opposite way, and you can see them and you can adjust for that.
Right. Yeah, because I guess, back in the day, we used to ride our bikes on the sidewalk, and that's not allowed anymore.
No.
It hasn't been for a really long time.
Exactly.
So, so what type, where do we start? What's the best type of equipment? Obviously, when you're looking for a bike, there's different types of bikes. So can we talk a little bit about the different types? I'm sure there's more than we can fill in 14
For sure.
minutes.
The sport of biking has really evolved. There's lots of different types of bikes, starting with the types of tires. So you have your general all-purpose bike, kind of like a town and country. You might graduate something to a gravel bike that can go on the dirt road as well as paved roads, and then you get into like fat tire bikes, which are much wider, that allow you to go more off-road. And so those are the wheels, but then you have to talk about the suspension and the frame as well. So they have solid frames where it's just solid, either aluminum or carbon graphite, carbon fiber, or they actually have suspension on it, much like the shocks on your car.
That sounds like a bike for me, the one with the suspension. With the shocks on it to absorb it.
Those are very comfortable. So when you're off the road and you're going over rocks and little cracks or kind of logs, things like that, they really do a lot of work to absorb the kind of what's happening underneath the wheels.
Okay. So let's talk about what we wear, because I would think ideally you don't want to be wearing things that flow in the wind. Like what should we wear?
I would say anything that's really comfortable. I would say the only thing on your right leg is you probably want to have some close-fitting pant legs so that you don't get it caught in the chain.
Right.
But people wear all sorts of things. You can wear your leggings, your tights, close-fitting pants, and up top, just what's appropriate for the weather. A jacket and a t-shirt is good.
Okay. And does it matter the shoes we wear when we're biking?
It depends on the bike you get. So there's clipped pedals where your shoe actually fits into the pedal and it's attached, and much like a ski binding, so it'll come in and out. Or you can just ride flats and you can just wear your typical flat bottom shoes. A lot of people wear kind of skate shoes, like from Vans, things like that.
Right.
And they go and ride and do a great job.
Now, the thought of clipping my feet into pedals on a bike, is that for a more experienced person, or is that because to me it's that whole if you need to take your legs, how?
Yeah, they're very very flexible. So the binding itself, you can set the tension, you can come out just as quickly as if you didn't have it on.
Okay.
The advantage is when you're clipped in, your foot is in the right spot. It helps your knee track over your foot in the right spot as you're doing your spinning, right? And then a lot of people in the winter when they're doing spin classes, it's very easy to kind of switch back and forth and be on them.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the trends that are happening in biking right now.
Yeah, I would say there's trends either in safety or in the operations of the bike. So in terms of safety, when I came on last time, I had a helmet that had the crash protection, and if it stopped suddenly, it would alert someone. Same thing in bikes, they have that as well. And then a lot of the electronics, like the wearable electronics or the bike computers, they have the same kind of thing now as well. So it can detect your speed and kind of send a signal if in case that you kind of stop suddenly or come across an obstruction or something. And then I would say in terms of the bike themselves, there's a lot more e-powered or e-assist bikes. So you're pedaling along, and if you get to something that's a little harder, the motor will kick in and it'll just give you a little boost. So it's not a full motorcycle. You don't just set it and then kind of zoom down the trail. You do need to pedal, so there's the e-assist. And then a lot of the shifting used to be just on cables, so a lot of it now is electronic. So it's like Bluetooth that tells the bike to make the gear feel harder or easier as you're going along. So those are two
That's pretty
really
fancy stuff.
big things, yeah.
From back in the day when I used to just hop on a bike and pedal away, yeah.
For sure.
So you're an instructor?
Yeah. So I'm certified through the PMBIA, which is a mouthful, but it's the Professional Mountain Bike Instructors Association. It's a global standard that allows you to go and teach never ever bikers all the way up to advanced. There's air maneuvers and things like that as well.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Hockley. You're working together with, I'm going to let you tell the news, like you're working with a team. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah, so we're very excited. We've got a team that we're calling Hockley Valley Resort Armada. So it's an under 23 Canadian racing development team. They race throughout North America and globally, and they go across different disciplines. So there's different disciplines. There's cross country, there's downhill, there's enduro, basically the type of terrain that people are on. So there's a group of 8 athletes based out of the Caledon Hill Cycling shop, as well as at Hockley Valley Resort. So we will be their training center.
Okay.
Home base.
So let's talk a little bit about biking at Hockley Valley Resort, and maybe a little bit about the trails. I think we have an image that we can show everybody, and you can tell us a little bit about what we're looking at. Okay, go ahead. And we've got this.
If you think about it, it's kind of runs like a bit of a figure 8. There's an east and west trail, and there's a lookout trail, and there's a little loop that goes around the winery at the top as well.
Okay.
So it's all single track. So that basically means single file down the trail. There's something called double track if you think of the width of a car, but we don't have that.
Okay.
So it just winds its way around. It's about 10.5 kilometers, and I would say it's suitable for intermediate to advanced.
Okay.
You will want to have a semi-decent fitness level because there is some climbing, but there's lots of ascents and descents throughout the
Okay.
climb.
Yeah, going down is fun. The descents are fun. That's when you can, if you really are tired from going up the hill, you get to take a little bit of a break.
Absolutely, but you can see from the map, it winds its way through, so there's a lot of great vistas as you go through the elevation. You see parts of the golf course, and you can kind of see right across into the valley. So when I was riding it in the fall, it was amazing just with the colors and being able to see
I was
across.
just going to say, the view from just taking, you almost would be taking a break just to stop and see some of the view some of the time.
Absolutely, yeah, it's very scenic. I'd say the winery loop is a good intermediate loop. It's fairly level. If you just do that loop, that's a great place probably to start on the trails. And then once you get a little bit more experience, and then you can go down to the bottom and then start on your way up.
Okay, so basically all the trails are the same length?
The entire loop is 10.5 K.
Okay.
So they're kind of broken down into different sections.
Okay, and obviously easily markered so you know which trails.
Absolutely.
So you're not suddenly like you're thinking you're tired, you're on your way back, and then you end up in the furthest spot from where you would
so the beauty of the single track, it really is only in one direction, and we actually run the trails. We alternate it each day. One day you're going in the east direction, one day you're going in the west direction. So there really isn't. It's basically a one-way.
So yeah, and I was just going to say, so this is not the type of thing where you want, like when you go on walking around Island Lake, if you decide that you're tired, you just back up and go back the other way. You really do have to keep going around.
Yeah, you do want to keep with the flow of traffic. I know at some of the other at the other trails, they're bidirectional, and then you just look out. Like, you usually have lots of time to spot someone coming, but our trails are one way just for safety.
Okay, yeah, and that's completely. So let's talk about safety. So is there anything other than the helmet that people are required to wear when they go onto the trail?
I would say depending on the day, definitely bring a water bottle. If it has electrolytes in it, that's great. So any of those kind of things, bring a snack. And then other than that, the trails are marked pretty good. The loop itself will take about an hour to do, so it's not too
like
long
a moderate
or too
pace?
arduous. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So not just going at a rapid
Tina pace.
At
Yes.
the Tina pace. Well, that might require a golf cart for me, Terrence. I don't know. But no, I mean, it's a beautiful piece of property, and it gives you the opportunity to go out, and build your skills and get the exercise and see some beautiful views.
Yeah, it's very scenic. We've got some beach volleyball courts in the valley. You go through the golf course, you go through the winery, you can see kind of the grapes, and then you have the long distance.
So are there
views.
Stops at the winery for a glass of wine and then hopping back on?
You can definitely stop on. You can definitely stop on.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, if you're passing.
I would suggest at the end of the ride would be best.
Maybe, yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So let's talk about the rentals. Like, is it something that people can go out and rent when, whether they're going to Hockley Valley or they're going to another place where there's...
So our situation is set up with rentals. So we have the different types of bikes. We kind of talked about it. So we have hardtail bikes, which are basically a fully rigid frame. We have full suspension bikes where there's a shock at the front and the back.
Okay.
And then we also have the e-bikes, the e-assist bikes that you can try, and they also have suspension. So I'm kind of building our way up. And then we also have the fat tire bikes. So the fat tire bikes, I know typically when they first came out, a lot of people were riding them in only the winter.
Okay.
But because the tire is so big, it actually creates a bit of suspension. I know a lot of people that love to just ride them all year round.
And I think maybe there'd be a comfort level to it too. Like if you haven't been, I mean, obviously if you haven't been on a bike for years and years and years, don't just go hop on the trail. Make sure that you're physically fit to do that. But I think even if you are a little bit older and still fit and in shape, maybe there's a comfort level to having a thicker tire? I don't know.
For sure. I would say it's the difference between riding around in a race car versus an SUV.
Okay.
That's really what it feels like. So it's a little bit more plush, it's a little bit more comfortable, and because you've got so much of the tire contacting the surface, you have a lot more grip and traction, which ultimately is what you want to keep your momentum so that you stay upright on the bike.
Definitely an SUV girl.
Yes.
Well, hopefully I get to that point one day where I can actually go out and bike the trails and not just do it on the golf cart. But I mean, there's so many things for people to know and just to be aware of. But I think number one, both your mental and physical health is really important before you take on anything like this.
Yeah, I think so. I think just kind of getting out there and just having a good headspace. So a lot of people ride just to clear their heads, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you do have a lot of time where you can be thinking about kind of whatever you need to do. And what's great about mountain biking, what I really like is it really puts you in the situation in the now, because as you're going through the trail, you can't think too further along.
Well, we've already run out of time, Terrence. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Excellent. Thank you, Tina.
And come back again.
I will.
And thank you for joining us. Until next time. Bye-bye for now. Yeah, sorry.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Yo. Yep. Okay, I'll be there.